Hi, everyone. This is Britt Simon. Jesse Bless just completed his landing session, explaining the basis of his lawsuit to some extent. It was a Zoom meeting, which is good because it's interactive with people. But of course, there are always going to be questions that don't get through, and some people sort of have, frankly, fairly basic questions. Divine, bless you. Which is really not useful to use Jesse's time on those sort of questions. But unfortunately, some people, sort of take too much time. So I thought I'd jump on, do a quick live, and try and sort of answer some of the questions that Jesse couldn't get to. So I took a few notes, basically. So let me just get my notes up, and I'm going to answer those questions quickly here and now. So if the rest of you could hold your questions for a few moments, let me just see. Hold your questions. Yeah, hold your questions for a few moments while I just go through some of these questions. So Jesse addressed, he was asked which judge or court would he go to. He addressed that. He said he wouldn't choose. He wouldn't decide whether to file or not based on which judge or court he was going to get, which makes sense. He either believes in his case or he doesn't. Does DS submission date matter? So here's the thing: for Jesse's focus, the way he's focused on this, he's suggesting he's going to take a small number of people as clients. He's saying 300. I guess that might vary, plus or minus, depending on how the onboarding goes. And at some point, he's then going to go and file the case. And he will say, as he files the case, get these people their interviews, and the case goes away. Because all he's focusing on is getting the interviews. He can't guarantee anyone a visa. He can't get you a visa if you're not current, or if you never get current. There are limitations, but what he can say is he can get you an interview if you're current, right? And so that's what he's going to say to the government. Look, here's 300 people. We can have a long, messy lawsuit, or you can take care of those people and give them an interview. He is coming from a perspective of having worked for the Department of Justice for many years and having successfully sued them as part of the Gomez case when he was with Ayla. Right. So does DS submission date matter in those circumstances? If the government say, OK, give me a list of 300 people and we'll make sure they get interviews, then frankly, the DS submission date won't matter a damn. Right. It won't matter because we've seen before the government will prioritize cases as they want to. They do prioritize them by DQ date. That's what they do if they're left to their own devices. But we've seen them before take an individual case and schedule that regardless of the DQ date. So it's not something that they hold to completely. So that's that answer. Let's see. How much would it cost to be on the suit? He went through that. It's $2,180. It's discussed and described on the landing page. There is a refund strategy that he has there. If the government settle very quickly by saying, yeah, okay, we'll give your plaintiffs an interview, and that happens very quickly, it's taken little time for Jesse and his team. And so there's some sort of refund structure there, and you can go to the landing page and figure that out from there. Somebody asked, what's your track record on such cases? Well, he's 1 for 1. He won the Gomez case as part of a team with Ayla. Let's see. If you're unable to get interviews for some clients before the end of the year, would reservation be the last resort? I think, and I hope it wouldn't attract any extra costs. He did deal with that. That's not his strategy. He's not looking for reservation. And much like Charles Cook has said, there is a sort of a difference of opinion that we're seeing at the moment between the three legal teams that I consider to be, the experts in this area. The three legal teams are Jesse, Charles Cook and Co. in the impact litigation team, and Curtis Morrison and Raphael. So three groups, right? Charles Cook and team are already filing. They're already putting the lawsuit together. Jesse's just announcing his filing, and Curtis is saying it's too early. Okay. Now I understand Curtis's perspective, and all three lawyer teams, they understand that perspective. There's a balance between whether you file early and too early in some respects because you can't prove there's been enough harm yet, right? You have to have been harmed, or whether you file too late and it's too late to do anything about it. And so they're trying to balance this. And so Charles Cook and the Impact team have gone first. Jesse's now coming, and Curtis and Raphael may file soon. I don't know. They haven't set any plans. So but is there harm being done? Yeah, absolutely. There's harm being done. We know that for a fact. We can see that. There's about 2,500 cases are scheduled so far in the second quarter, and we got 194 visas issued in the first quarter. I mean, it's nuts. We're way behind where we should be, and we're going to run out of time, right? So, they're going to have to do something, and a reservation of visas may need to be done later. But we'll have to see what sort of lawsuit that takes. DS submission date I dealt with. Is your lawsuit going to benefit the people who did not join the lawsuit? He's not doing a class action. It's not a pro bono case. It's not designed to help everybody, but lawsuits tend to cause changes of behavior. So in that respect, it might be that a lawsuit, any of the lawsuits, particularly multiple lawsuits, might actually prompt the government to say, oh crap, we're going to continue to get sued if we don't do something. We've seen that in the past. We've seen that in the last year and a half, where the government has changed its behavior based on being sued, and it's benefited more people outside of the individual lawsuit. For example, DV 2021. Some of you will argue this, but that's because you're wrong. The DV 2021 was helped by DV 2020 lawsuit. It just was. I mean, it's very obvious that the track record was sort of laid down from the beginning. And there were actions taken. We saw Curtis was about to file a lawsuit recently, and the government, coincidentally, perhaps, but very quickly changed their behavior, I think the next day or 2 days later. So, these things do have, they have impact. You can't always connect the dots. You can't always say this lawsuit caused this behavior, but I think it does happen. Even frankly, the revocation of 10014, that was frankly, I believe, because of legal pressure. Can the payment be made in installments? It's a good question. I think that Jesse will answer. I think I'm assuming not. I think I think it's going to be 2180 as a single payment. Can't the Department of State challenge you if they cannot give your client an interview because there are already lower numbers that have not been scheduled yet if both cases are current? As long as both cases are current, the priority between those cases is loosely DQ date, right? Not the DS submission date. People get very confused about that. It's not the DS submission date. It's the date that the DS 260 is processed. Right, and despite what they keep saying, it's very clear that they're doing some level of processing on the DS260. Frankly, that's one of the things that the lawsuit can help figure out, because if the date of submission were the important thing, then frankly, half the cases in the world would be ready for interview and they would be getting their interviews, and that's not happening. We're getting people who are getting letters and emails from KCC saying your DS260 is still being processed. So there is still, whether we like it or not, and whether the declarations say it or not, there is still some level of processing going on, and there is a date when that processing finishes. And even though you don't send in the documents, the date when that processing finishes is the DQ date, right? So, so in that scenario, DQ date is supposed to be the thing that causes the priority when two cases, when I've got two cases here, and there's only one slot left for the interview for the capacity of the embassy for this month. They're both at the same embassy. Then the one of those cases that was DQ'd first should be the one that they prioritize. Having said that, in this scenario where Jesse or any lawyer files these cases, the government can ignore that, of course, because it's it's up to them to do that, and they do it all the time. And so they can, the date of DQ won't matter. And I think I addressed that earlier. If we do sign up, do we get a refund if we don't get current? I think Jesse covered that. Muaz, you answered a second question here. You asked a second question. So one question I just answered for you. And Muaz, your second question was, in the circumstances the applicant is living in his home country, like civil war, etc., could have a push, or it's purely a DV process thing. Jesse sort of answered that. I think to be clear, Jesse or no lawyer can force, for example, Afghanistan embassy to reopen to process diversity visas. That's not going to happen. What he said in the live session was that he would ask the government to move that to another embassy, and then of course it's up to you to be able to get to that embassy to make sure you can safely travel to that other embassy. If you're in a country where there's a war going on, your first thing needs to be, are you safe to travel, right? If you're in one of these countries where there are difficulties, you need to be able to travel safely. Assuming you can travel safely and you can get to an embassy that is open, Jesse is saying that he'll try and get an interview scheduled at that embassy for you, right? So there'll need to be some sort of communication between yourselves and Jesse. And that I think is why he's, it's those sort of issues, because he wants to have contact with people individually to be able to resolve those sort of issues. That's why he's limiting the numbers to only 300 people or so. All right. So he can't do that if there's 20,000 people. Curtis gave it a really good try, and Curtis had to enlist help from lots of other people who he temporarily hired on so that he could communicate to more people, right? But that's not what Jesse is trying to do here. Jesse is trying to keep the case small enough that he can actually communicate to individuals, and deal with people individually. So I think I caught most of the questions. I'm sure I've missed a few questions, but let me just see if there's other sort of other questions. Remove your hold your questions banner. Okay, I just did. There's no need to send documents anymore. That's correct. There is no, since December 9th, they took that requirement away for DV 2022. Would it be an issue if I present 2 affidavit of support forms? I ask this because perhaps it may come off as desperate. Don't do that. One form is enough. If you've got 2 people who don't earn enough money to support you, you can't consider them as, 2 is better than 1 in that case. If they're both financially not able to support you, combining them, having 2 people who can't afford to support you is no good. One form is enough. That's all you need. Just one form of someone who meets the formula, whose income is sufficient. And frankly, the income levels are extremely low, right? So if somebody can't meet the poverty guidelines numbers, and frankly, they're not in a position to help you, no matter where they live. And certainly around here, I mean, forget about it, Let's see. I'm trying to go, let me just go back here. From Uzbekistan, one of the child sport, there is a patronymic name. That's who was born in the UK. Like in other kids, but in the initial application we put a mistake. Okay, so a mistake you make on a derivative's name in the original entry, or even in in the DS260, to an extent, is not that important. The name they really care about is the main selectee's name, right? But if you put the wrong name in the original entry, you just correct it in the DS260. Try and make sure the DS260 is accurate, right? Let's see, MD, is the price inclusive of everything from now until interview? Will you be asking for more money? No, I believe it's inclusive. But when it comes to terms, obviously, you're free to contact Jesse individually and just make sure. But no, it seems to be a single price. And somebody, I think it was Whale. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. Somebody pointed out that in Africa, that's a lot of money. Jesse totally gets it. I totally get it. It is a lot of money for a lot of people. There's a couple of answers to that. One was the answer that Jesse gave, that his hands are tied. That's what his new employer is saying that he needs to charge in order to make it financially viable. But also, you have to understand there's two other answers I'm going to give you. You have to understand that the numbers are not based on the income where you live. It's based on the costs of running a business in America, right? And so it may seem a lot of money for you in an African country, and maybe it is a huge amount of money in an African country, or not just Africa. There's other countries too. It could be an enormous amount of money. But you have to, and this is my sort of last part of the question or the answer, you have to look at it with the mindset of, okay, it's a lot of money to me where I am today, but what's my earning potential in America, right? How much money is it worth to actually be there, right? So you have to understand, A, it costs a lot of money because they're in America, but B, you have an opportunity to go to America and work, and $2,000, frankly, is not a lot of money over here. I was thinking this the other day. I paid, so this weekend I've got a couple of days, 2 nights in an Airbnb. It's going to cost $700, I think, $700 for 2 nights. I mean, it's $2,000 for a life-changing lawsuit compared to 2 nights in an Airbnb, which is not even a particularly expensive one. It's like you've got to weigh up your priorities and think, okay, if I'm going to be in a position in America where if I'm in software I could be earning $200,000 or $300,000 a year, why am I complaining about a $2,000 amount of money? And then if you want to hire a lawyer direct, I know that there were some unsuccessful lawyers that were advertising their services to file similar lawsuits to the Go and the Good Luck cases, but at $15,000 individually, $15,000 each. Well, that again is not an unrealistic amount of money. That's a normal amount of money for an immigration case. But it's going to sound stupid to you if your annual income is $5,000. It's going to sound like a ridiculous amount of money, but you have to think of it in American terms. Is it possible that the government begins to distribute the 9,095 visas? You're talking about DV 2020, and in that case, and the DV 2021 case, the government have said that they're making some necessary system changes to about 5 systems, which would allow them to issue visas after the end of the fiscal year, because their systems at the moment don't allow that, they say, right? And so they're making changes, which they've said would take about 4 months, and they started that process in December. And so they, in their most recent report, to Judge Mehta on this, they said they're spending about $500,000 on making those changes, and they expect to be finished around about April. So that means that the earliest we could see interviews is maybe in April, maybe. I wouldn't guarantee that. I mean, it could be later than that. So it could be April or May. And there is also an appeal process going through at the moment. I suspect that appeal might be dropped. They don't have permission to continue with the appeal as it currently stands. And so they could drop the appeal. But in any case, it's going to be at least April and possibly May and beyond before we see any of the 9,095 visas being issued. Okay, and the same thing for DV 2021 in the Go case, which is already finalized. The Good Luck case, of course, is scheduled to be completed around about April. So again, the Good Luck case, the visas won't be issued until at least April, probably later than that. Okay. Another question from MD. Will there be any blowbacks from this, especially if I'm not current and my consulate does well? Is this harassing the government? I'm suing because I want to make sure the DS-260 is processed on time. I actually don't think you should be suing to get your DS-260 processed on time. I think that's a silly perspective, frankly. You should be suing to get an interview, right? It's not, and you can pretty much assume that there is time to process all of the DS-260s. People have got far too concerned about this DS-260 processing thing. There is time for the DS-260 processing. What there is not time for is to schedule all the interviews we need. So you need to get your mind focused on where it needs to be focused for a start. But to answer your original question, will there be blowbacks? There is, Jesse addressed this on the call just then. In general, firstly, they're not allowed to retaliate, right? There are certain laws in place that means they can't retaliate. Secondly, logically, they actually don't mind, and they don't retaliate. They don't sort of get grumpy or anything like this. The people doing these jobs are not anti-immigrant, right? The people on the ground floor, actually at the embassies, etc., and in KCC, etc., they're not trying to keep people out of the country. That's not their perspective, and so they're not going to be angry when they're told to do their jobs, because frankly they would rather do their jobs better, I think. And it's sort of disorganization, bad management, frankly, that just screws the whole thing up. What's my view about the Kabul Baghdad new reassignment procedure? I think it's fine, but people have got to actually listen to what they're told. I saw an update from Curtis saying you've got to put the exact subject line in. I don't know how many times I've explained that to people. It's very important that you follow the procedures the way that they say to follow the, here's the procedure. When they said about submitting DS-260 documents, for example, or documents, there was a very specific, subject line you had to put in there. And I explained to people in videos why that was. And the reason why that was is because they had an ability to search through an email box based on certain information. And if you put other information in there, it screwed up that processing, right? Screwed up the prioritization or the ordering within the inbox. In the same way, you can imagine that if you send an email to KCC and you don't put the right subject line in there, it isn't going to be dealt with properly. So you need to put the right subject line in there, the exact subject line. And Curtis listed it again, but you need to follow the instructions exactly, not what you think is a good idea, but what they want, right? And that way, then if they don't do what you ask them to do, then you've got the reason to complain. But if you didn't follow the instructions, you've got no reason to complain. So there you go. Typically, how long do they take to process the DS-260M process for interview? It's varying at the moment. The declaration that came from the lawsuit the other day, or the progress report that was given to Judge Mehta the other day on the Gomez suit, had a declaration attached, which again listed in a fair amount of detail, so essentially saying that the moment the DS-260 is submitted, for all the people in the case, you're good to go, right? You should be able to be scheduled. That clearly is not what they're actually doing, right? And I think actually the lawyers should be making something about that in the lawsuits. The government, and I know Curtis will, because he picks on details like that, right? The government are saying, as soon as you submit the DS-260, you're ready for an interview. But KCC are saying to people, if you ask them, they're saying, well, your case is still being processed. Your DS-260 is still being processed, and it will take some weeks. All right. So number one, I can't answer your question about how long will it take, because it should be instant according to what the government says, but KCC clearly are doing something different. And number two, there's clearly some sort of backlog situation going on at KCC. So I can't predict how long it will take, but it's just very obvious that there is some sort of processing going on, contrary to what the declaration says. I think Jesse is overestimating the number of people joining him. What if you can only onboard 50 people? Not the impact litigation deadline will note that the impact litigation will be over in a week. Yeah, he might be overestimating. That's part of his business risk, right? And that's partly, you can sell if you have a chicken for sale. I'm picking on a chicken. If you have a chicken for sale and you want $100 for the chicken, but it's the best, and you describe it as the best chicken in the world, then a few people will pay $100. But if you sell it for $5, a lot of people will pay the $5, right? And it doesn't matter what your description is. So in the lawsuit business, and that's what that is. Let's be honest. Jesse is setting his price point at a level that is above the impact litigation team, probably above that that Curtis and Raphael will charge, and he's therefore looking for a more personalized service, a more and some people will appreciate that, some people won't. That might mean that he gets less clients, and that's all part of his his understanding, his business understanding. That's up to him, right? He can't not file because he doesn't have enough people. He just takes on the risk. When Curtis filed the 24,000 suit, I'm 100% sure that there was no way when Curtis started that lawsuit that he expected to have 24,000. I think he probably expected 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, maybe. He didn't expect 24,000. But of course, he made it for some people. He made it basically free to sign on. And when you give something away for free that's actually worth something, and it was worth something, you get a lot of people sign up for it, right? That's basic economics. Okay. Hi, Britt. Hope you're doing well. You received an email from my embassy saying I have been scheduled for the 1st of February, but the ESC page isn't updated yet. What should I do? Contact the KCC or the embassy. Either way, they should be able to give you the date. So try them both. You can contact KCC and the embassy, and say, you've been told you've got the interview scheduled. You know it's on the 1st, but you don't know what time of day it would be, right? So you should be able to clarify that with either KCC or with the embassy direct. Either way. KCC are answering most emails pretty quickly, by the way, at the moment, same day in some cases, 1 day turnaround. So they should be able to answer that question for you. Answer that. No need to answer that. My country was a communist country, but recently started to give passport. When I applied DV 2022, I said that from communist country. If I take passport to interview, is it a denial? You've got to take the passport to the interview. It's not like you can pretend you don't have a passport now. You can't be dishonest in this process, right? If you've got a passport, you have to take it. Now, were you legitimately, allowed to use the exemption at the time of entry? That's up to the CO to determine. I can't tell you 100% certain that you won't be disqualified or that you will be disqualified. Either way, I can't tell you. I don't know which current country you're talking about for a start, and I don't know what the COs are going to do about this. But chances are they probably know the difficulties in obtaining a passport from some countries, and they may decide to say, yep, you were justified in using that exemption. I don't know. I can't be 100% sure on that. What if I forgot the email I used to apply for the visa lottery? I have 2 emails, but I forgot which of the 2 I use. Really? Well, it doesn't really matter, is the first thing. Is it Boxeo? Is that your no, it sounds like it must be sounds like a last name. But anyway, but it shouldn't matter, basically. You don't need it. As long as you've got your confirmation ID, you don't need to know which of the email addresses you used. But there's only 2. So, if you do get into a position where you need to know which email address you used, which you only need to know if you lost your confirmation number, then you'll have to figure it out. But generally speaking, it doesn't matter which email address you used. when you fill out the DS-260, you put an email address in there, and that's the email they will use going forward. Okay. Yeah, so I tweeted about this the other day. According to the Gomez status report, they stopped document procedure so that they could speed up 22 to make way for 2020 and 2021. Does this mean we can expect around 45K visas issued similar to prior years, to years prior to COVID? Right. Firstly, in years prior to COVID, prior to DV 2020, the limit on visas was at 50,000, not 55,000. The reason for that was because of the NACARA program. The NACARA program was declining for the last 25 years. And so over time, it took less and less of the visas, and it was being allowed up to 5,000. So around about DV 2020, they started saying, okay, NACARA is not going to take, very many visas. So we've got more for DV 2020, 2021, 2022. I think the increase for DV 2022 effectively means we've got 4,850 extra visas to issue. However, the quota is not the problem this year, and I wish some of you were paying attention to that. The problem is the time that they're leaving. There isn't enough time for them to issue all of the visas. Just think of it this way. Every case has on average roughly 2 people on it, right? And the 55,000 visas is therefore going to take around about 27,000 interviews to issue, right? To issue all of those visas, right? There's something like a 10% denial rate, so we'll call the 27,000, we'll call that 30,000 cases. Meaning you've probably got to have 30,000 interviews take place before the end of September to issue all the visas, right? And you can do the same calculation on 45,000 or any other number you care to come up with, right? Right now, they have scheduled around about 2,500 interviews. So they've got to do 30,000. They've scheduled 2,500, and we've got 7 months left. Right? So there isn't time for them to do that number of visas unless they start scheduling something like 4,000 cases per month. If they did 4,000 cases in the remaining 7 months from March to September, 4,000 cases a month, right? That would be 28,000 28,000 cases that they could actually, interviews that they could hold, right? That would be the sort of number we would need to see. But 4,000 is, firstly, it's more than I've ever seen, right? I've never seen that. I think in August of 2018, I think the highest number I'd seen pre-pandemic was something like 3,695. Call it 3,700 interviews. So the total global capacity, when everything's working well, when nobody's got COVID, when nobody's shutting down embassies like Afghanistan or Baghdad or Cairo's not getting off their ass and doing anything. When all of the embassies are working well, nobody's got COVID, nobody's at war. Then they scheduled 3,700 visa interviews in 1 month, right? In August 2018, I think that was. Now, is it likely, therefore, that in these times they're going to do 4,000 in March, right, and 4,000 every single month between now and the end of the month? No, it's not likely. It's not very likely at all. And the other thing is that DV 2020 is going to come along and will need about 4,000 interviews to be performed. DV 2021 is going to need probably another, 500 or 1,000 interviews, because I'm assuming the good luck case will actually be delayed beyond September 30th this year. If it's not, that's going to be another sort of 7,000 or 8,000 visas, therefore another 3,000 or 4,000 interviews. So, there isn't time for all of that work. There just isn't time. So we're not going to see 55,000 issued. We're not going to see 45,000 issued. We're probably going to be doing well if we see 35 or 40,000 issued, right? And who will they go to? They'll go to the lower case numbers, right? They'll go to people who get the interviews, etc. So All the people that are asking, I'm going or saying things like I'm going to be current. Even Jesse said it. I'm sorry, I haven't made it clear to Jesse my thoughts on that. There isn't time technically for them to go current with all the regions. Now they may do it. They may do it because they just say, "Oh, screw it, we can't control this, and we're just going to make everyone current." But that will cause a chaos like we saw in 2020 and 2021. It's really not the right way to do it. So there isn't time for them to do all of that work. That's basically the problem. It's not a quota issue. We don't have a quota problem. We have a time problem. And we got a time problem because they sat on their asses and did nothing in October, November, December. They issued 194 visas. They wasted the first quarter of the year. And depending on what they do now in March, let's say they do, by some miracle, I don't think this is going to happen, but let's say by some miracle they scheduled 4,000 visas in March. That means that in Q2 they would have scheduled about 2,500 from January and February and 4,000, let's say, in March. I'm being really optimistic when I say that. Right, so that's 6,500 in a quarter. That's about 13,000 people. That's not even enough, right? Even if they turn that round, which would be a bloody miracle if they did 4,000 in March. Right, it's not enough. So I think we've got a problem. So there you go. Anwar says, got in transit last week and is ready this Monday. That's good. No 2NL. Is it normal? Embassy is Morocco, and they've recently cancelled some January interviews. Yeah. When you say you've got no 2NL, if you're worried about seeing the email, forget the bloody email, right? Just go and check the ESC page, right? It's possible that you've received the in transit and ready status and that an interview has been set for you. But just recently, for the last, and we hadn't seen this ever before, but, for the last few weeks, someone at KCC has been doing the process wrong. So the ESC page is not being updated. But firstly, check the ESC page because that's where the actual interview schedule is there. You don't need the email. You just need the ESC page, right? And if it's not there, then you can ask either KCC or the embassy for your time and date of your interview, and it has been sent. If when KCC sends the 2NL, the case is marked as in transit. When the embassy receives your case and says, "Yeah, okay, understood. We're gonna schedule Johnny, for that interview in February," they mark it as ready, right? So the embassy have acknowledged your case. So the embassy should know about your case. They should know the time that's been sent, and KCC should know as well. Okay. You've sent civil documents on 16th of November after DR. While checking the case on SEAC website, it shows the cases at MVC. I wonder if I should do anything else. Upload the docs. Right. Firstly, the documents are no longer required. Since December 9th, they've changed the procedure. They haven't updated their bloody instructions, of course, because why would they do something so easy as that and make it too obvious? But your documents are unimportant. You don't have to, and you've never needed to upload them to the DS260 site or anything like that. So forget your documents, right? Your case is at MVC, Kasparovich. So your case is at MVC. MVC, your case isn't actually at MVC. That's just the status. It's the starting status for every single case out there. It simply means you haven't been scheduled yet. That's all that means. And you can ignore everything it says in the text under the MVC status. Because literally KCC are the authority on DV cases. A DV case never, ever, ever goes to NVC. Never, at no time, ever. Did I make that clear? So even though that's what the status says, even though that's where your case is according to the SEAC page, it's not there, and you can ignore everything on there, and it simply means you haven't been scheduled yet. That's all it means. Okay. So now you just have to wait for your 2NL. They may be sending out DQ RFS. We don't know yet, right? They seem to have been sending them out only where people have asked for an update status, and people ask for a status and they get an email reply saying, yeah, your case is fully processed. You're ready for scheduling. When you're in, when you become current, blah, blah, blah. So The reality is you should be, most cases should be able to be processed pretty quickly. Things are changing. I think, we're going to see some changes over the next 2 or 3 weeks at KCC. We'll have to see how things go. You're in Ethiopia as a refugee. Well, Ethiopia's shut, so you're not going to get an interview in Ethiopia. You're going to have to travel somewhere else. You need to start thinking about where else can you safely have an interview. And having an interview in another country means you've got to be there for long enough that you can have your medical in that country, because in almost all cases, the medical has to be performed in country where you have the interview. So you've got to be there long enough to have the medical, have the interview, and wait for your passport or other papers, travel papers, to be given back to you. That period of time can be 3 or 4 weeks easily. It can be longer. So you need to make an allowance for that and make sure you can stay in that country safely for that period of time. And follow the immigration laws, for God's sake. Don't just, I understand as a refugee, you've got to do some things, or someone seeking asylum, etc. You've got to do some things on the edge of, legal. But please do follow the laws. You can't expect the USA immigration system to respect your, your way of behaving if you've demonstrated a complete disregard for everybody else's immigration system, right? Running for your life is one thing, and you're entitled to do that, but don't just take the piss, right? Don't just, bowl into some country and pretend like immigration and borders don't mean a damn thing, and then expect the US government to say, oh yeah, don't worry, we love people here that don't respect the laws. Of course they're not going to say that. When individual questions like when can you be interviewed, for all the reasons I said, I'm not going to predict. Are you talking to me? No. Hello, my boss. Thank you for the information. Yes. So there's some conversation there going on. Martin, now I have at MVC, I don't see clear the schedule of my interview because I know Mexico isn't a candidate of the program. I have a doubt. Okay, it doesn't matter. Martin, it doesn't matter if you're in the Mexico embassy catchment area. You can be interviewed at that embassy, even though residents or natives of Mexico are not eligible to participate. For example, I'm British. I could have had my as a British person, I was not eligible to enter the DV lottery, but my wife was Spanish. But if we had been living in Spain at the time of my DV process, in England, then I could have processed there. It doesn't matter that Brits are not allowed to participate in the DV lottery. The London embassy does a hell of a lot of DV cases, right? And same thing with Mexico. They can do it. Mohammed is apparently an idiot. With coronavirus, there's no DV lottery anymore. Oh, really? Tell that to people who are getting visas. There is problems, but it's not like there is no more DV lottery, for God's sake. Let's not be idiots about it. Unique Dispa. Now I'm in USA as a J1 visa, and my wife, she's DV lottery winner, case number 41K. What do you subject me to do? I don't subject, I think you mean advise. Okay, you're in as a J1. Does your wife have a suitable status? She's assuming they're both here, then you can adjust status when you become current, right? Your case number has to become current though. So you can't file your paperwork until then. You can't file your, I suggest you don't file your DS-260 until then. You probably need to sort of go to my blog and ask a question more accurately. So go to britsimonsays.com and ask a question more completely there. But basically, there is an early filing policy, but you still need to, your number needs to have been announced in the visa bulletin for you to be able to file the I-485, okay? Where's the website of Jesse? Can you put a link? Yes, I can. Where is it? Yeah, damn it. Hang on, I'm just going to get the link for Jesse. I think it's someone may have done this already. This one. There you go. There's a password on this page. I don't know why Jesse did that, actually. Oh, here we go. Let me do that. Where the hell am I? I've lost myself now. Too many windows open. Okay, so I'm putting in Jesse's information there for his landing page. Okay, it's just gone in. Okay. Seb, thank you so much. My daughter is just after the interview, waiting for passport with issued visa. That's awesome. That's awesome. January 26th, flight to Miami. Miami airport sucks, by the way. I used to live there. Kind of a sucky airport, but anyway, good luck. Miami itself is a nice place. Simon, if someone is married, do I need the 134 form for both the husband and the wife signed? No, the person that gives you the 134 is on the 134. They list out your family members, and the one I-34 they provide covers you and all of the family members. So yeah, you only need one I-34, I-134. Already done that question. Is the lawsuit our only chance to get interviewed? No, it's not. It's not required. Somebody said this the other day. Oh, I saw this comment on Twitter. It was like, lawyers keep your hands out of our pockets. And I just laughed at the stupidity of this person that put that. It's such a stupid perspective. The lawyers cannot reach through the computer into your pocket. The only reason that the lawyers would get your money is if you pay them. It's a choice. You have the mental capability to decide whether you do or don't want to be in the lawsuit. You don't have to participate. You can choose to be treated by the government any way the government wants to treat you, and just wait for your chance. And there will be plenty of people, I do believe, that will get their visas this year and not be on lawsuits, right? That's a choice. But you're taking the good with the bad. If you hire a lawyer, if you participate in one of these lawsuits, you're asking the lawyer to fight for you and give you better chances of getting that. You're trying to protect yourself to make sure that your once-in-a-lifetime chance actually means something. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to. That's entirely your choice. If you can't afford to participate, then again, you don't have to participate. But I don't think we're going to see another pro bono large case. I don't think we're going to see it unless Curtis decides he's made enough money and wants to do that. But people don't have to work for nothing just because we want them to. So so Rita, you are entirely free to not participate in any lawsuits, and then as I say, just wait for the government to do whatever they want to do with your case. That's basically it. Angel, thanks for everything. We sent an email to KCC and they respond to us one day later saying we are on hold for an interview, but searching the SEAC website, we're still at MVC. Is it normal? Yes, it's normal. Until you're actually scheduled, the SEAC page that says you're at MVC, that won't change until you're scheduled. And the first change you'll see is it will say in transit. You might see that, or it might say ready because the embassy has already accepted it. Okay. What about the Guyana embassy that has not given interviews for DV winners since September? It's not just Guyana. Every embassy is like really behind. There are a few embassies that are doing pretty well, but there are lots. It's not just Guyana, right? And I think they've got some scheduled interviews. I talked about DV 2020 already. No. David's asking, won't the COs just decide to give lots of refusals a way of getting back at applicants? No, they won't. No. That you're thinking that they're going to take it personally, or they're going to take it as some sort of attack on them or whatever. It's not like that at all. You're protecting your rights. And if they're Americans, frankly, they're very used to it. So no, it's not going to happen. Jagadesh. Is affidavit of support mandatory to be submitted for every DV winner, regardless of their financial background? No. The affidavit of support, the I-134, is the only affidavit of support that can be used in DV cases. You cannot use the I-864, right? There are two different forms, and the I-864 is for different types of immigration case. The I-134 is one way, one of several ways that you can satisfy the consular officer that you won't become a public charge. It's not the only way. You can show savings, your own personal savings. You might have a very successful career, and in a career that is obviously going to get you a job straight away in the USA. You may have people that are willing to host you. There are various ways that you can meet that concern, right? So it's not always the I-134. The only thing I would say is that the I-134 is black and white. It's if you have one, you don't have a problem, right? It's completely meets if you have one that actually meets the requirements, where the person sponsoring you is earning enough money and is known to you. It satisfies the requirements just automatically, kind of thing. Whereas the other things are subjective. Like you'll say to me, how much money do I need to show in my bank account and for how long? And I'll say, I don't really know. I know it's roughly about 10,000 per person, but it could be more. And an individual CEO could say, no, I think I want you to show more money. I want you to show $75,000. I've known it. I've known a DV applicant be asked to show a minimum of $125,000 in order to show that they can support themselves. It's subjective. It's up to the CEO, whereas an I-134 is automatic. That's why I recommend the I-134. Current in February, no interview yet. So the landing page, I gave the landing page information. It's $2,180 is the price for his lawsuit, but there is a refund process there. So you probably want to read that on the landing page. Is there any hope? Already talked about that. Watching for Ethiopia. I'm hoping things are safe for you in Ethiopia. There are a number of countries where either through COVID concerns or war concerns, civil unrest concerns, the US embassy has taken decisions to sort of close their embassy or to restrict activities, etc. And I do wonder at times whether that's the US embassy being overly cautious, and whether people in the country would say, don't worry about that civil unrest. It's not actually causing a problem here. It's only in the rural areas or something like that. I heard the other day, where was the place? I can't remember which country it was, but somebody said, oh yeah, they've closed down the embassy because of COVID, but there are no cases here. I'm like, okay, why are you in this particular country like immune from COVID? Why do you think that is? Or do you suspect that perhaps your government is not publishing accurate information? That's more likely the case. Right, a couple more questions and we'll call it a day. What will be the maximum case number in Europe? I don't know. I can't answer those sort of questions. Hello, Clan Chief. Regarding G financial sponsor. Okay. A 1040 is a tax report. It's something that the sponsor would have. Almost everybody in the USA files a 1040 every year. Either they're employed and they file a 1040, or they're self-employed and they file a 1040. So most people who are earning money and paying tax in the USA have one. It's used as a supporting document for an I-134. Every embassy will understand that, and they will accept a 1040, but not on its own, only as a supporting document to an I-134, right? So you don't just submit that form, you submit an I-134, which should be supported by up-to-date financial information, the 1040, a W-2, or a pay slips plus photo ID. So So I don't understand why you're saying they don't accept that form. That's bullshit, frankly. Bogota embassy, I don't know if there's any issues with them particularly. Nothing new about DV 2021. Yeah, talked about that one already. For high case number EU 22K, I think you were on the call, weren't you? Which is likely to become to bring more benefit. Firstly, neither case can help you if you don't become current. No case can help you if you don't become current, right? I haven't checked, but I don't think Charles Cook and Co. have set a number limit on the number of cases. So you could probably sign up for the impact case, but not, it seems, for Jesse's case, right? So, to be honest, that's your question answered right there. He would not accept you as a client, I believe, according to the parameters he's put out there. You could contact him and ask, but neither case is going to help you if your case number does not get current. Please understand that. There is nothing they can do if you don't become current. If your number becomes current, then it's, your question is really which team of lawyers do you believe will act better for you in your interest and perhaps give you the sort of interaction you want, right? That's up to you. Okay. Does the bulletin for January appear? It will do in a few days' time. It's not due yet. It generally comes around about the 15th. It can be later than that, though. Okay. Here's an interesting one. So you were worried about not having support form for your interview today. The CEO, in your case, didn't ask for proof of money on the side or pay slips. Okay. It's not always asked for. Curtis described the I-134 as the biggest problem for Africans, the biggest barrier or something they called it. It's not at all. In a lot of cases, they don't ask for it because once the CEO is meeting with you, they can see you've got good education or some good professional background. You're smart. You come across well in the interview. They're less likely to be concerned about you as public charge. They use those feel-good factors to ascertain whether they think you're going to be okay going to the USA. If they have concerns in any way, or if they've got a policy at that embassy where they want to ask about finances, they will ask, right? But it's not in every case. So yeah, you were probably lucky. And if you're you say you're Bobby Belgian, if you're in Belgium, then, rather like Australia, for example, Australian candidates in Sydney are very rarely asked for finances because, frankly, they're wealthy. It's a wealthy country. People coming from there are going to be okay. Okay, so Saman, I'm just reading your thing here. You can't log into your DS260 because your case number is unavailable. While I know what's wrong with my date of birth, right? So what's probably happened is you've probably tried lots and lots of times to enter your case and it's become locked. It's locked for security reasons because you tried over and over again and your date of birth was wrong, right? So they thought someone was trying to hack into your case and your form became locked. The only way you can get that unlocked is by contacting KCC, who will probably ask you to go to the embassy. It's a shame that's happened because it's a pain in the ass procedure, and it's probably going to cause you some difficulty. So please, people, understand that if you try and enter your DS260 and you can't get in, you need to stop right there what you're doing because you're probably going to screw yourself up as Saman has, right? And it becomes a pain in the ass to get it unlocked. I've created a video to explain how people should be logging into the DS260 and how they can check the various pieces of data you need to know in order to be able to get into your DS260. I wish people would pay more attention to that because, anyway, all you can do, Saman, is contact KCC. Good luck with that. Everything is fine with me, thank you, and my family, thank you for asking. You've witnessed a decline for 2NLs in the last 2 days. Is this justified? You need to stop thinking. I see some guy every morning in the Telegram group. He's like, yesterday he posted something like, it's 2 minutes. Like KCC have been open for 2 minutes and there's been nothing yet. And this morning it was like KCC have been open for 32 minutes and still nothing. And it's like, oh my God, dude, relax, calm down. There is no promise. There is no reason to think that 2NLs are going to come from KCC every day of the week. It's not going to happen. Just relax. And certainly thinking they're going to come out in the first 2 minutes of the day for KCC is kind of stupid, frankly, because that means they would have had to have been ready with them the previous day. And if they were ready the previous day, then they're going to send them out the previous day, right? So anyway, some of you are funny. You're very funny people, some of you. Live in Dubai. I'm from Ghana, but I live in Dubai, register for Dubai. That's no problem. There's no problem. You can process in Dubai. Is it true that good luck reserve visas may be issued prior to 2023? It's possible, but look, the good luck case is only going to be finished in sort of April of this year. And there's already delays in it in terms of the appeal process. So even that date could get pushed back. So definitely it's not going to start until April. And we also know about the system changes they need to be making, right? I don't think the judge is going to say in April or May, let's say the case actually drifts on to May. I don't think with everything going on, the judge is going to say, okay, you've got to issue all these visas in the next 4 months. I don't think they're going to say that. I think they're probably going to say, okay, we'll give you a full 12 months now, or we'll give you till the end of the 2023 fiscal year or something. It doesn't mean they have to wait that long, but they, they don't want to disadvantage the people by saying that you have to get these processed in the next 90 days or something. So, we'll have to see what happens there. We'll just have to wait for it, right? Okay, last question. What's the DK date? No. How many numbers? Okay, any news about the BBB? Last one here. I've really tried to avoid predicting whether the BBB and specifically the Meng amendments go into law or not. I hope some of you have paid attention to that. I don't want to predict that because it's an up and down process. It's a negotiation. The Biden administration want to do certain things, but the Senate is split 50-50, right? The Biden administration, frankly, doesn't have the power to push some legislation through that is not popular. And as we saw, the BBB basically almost died because one guy, Joe Manchin, didn't want to send it through. He didn't want to approve it, which meant that the Democrats only had 49 votes in the Senate for this thing. Now, if they had a 60-40 advantage or a 70-30 advantage, which is a dream, but if they had an advantage, they would have more power, right? So quite often, the Biden administration is unable to push through legislation because they're not strong enough in terms of the Senate, right? They're held back. And they're likely to lose even the narrow margin they've got. Although it's 50-50, they have the deciding vote with the VP. If there's literally a vote which is 50-50, the vice president, Kamala Harris, gets to sort of make the deal breaker, the tiebreaker there. So you can almost consider it's like 51-50 in the Senate. But that needs every Democrat to toe the line, and that's not what they're doing. Some Democrats have objected to some of the laws. So they negotiate behind the scenes, and I don't know which way that negotiation is going to go, and none of you do, and nobody really knows how that's going to work out. There's some pressure just recently being put on Joe Manchin. And, maybe that will have some advantage. Maybe that will bring the BBB back to life. If not, the Meng amendments, which are the things that relate to the DV lottery, may be pulled out of that BBB and put into some other legislation. And because it doesn't actually cost anything, it's possible that might be worked into some bill later on. We'll have to wait and see. But other than that, I can't really predict it. Okay. I think I've answered most of the questions I can this morning. I hope that was useful. I hope it clarified some of the things from Jesse's call earlier. More power to the lawyers. One last thing I would say is I saw a poll earlier on one of the Telegram forums. It was like, do you think we'll need a lawsuit? And it was 51% saying yes and 49% saying no. I can't believe that 49% of people in the DV lottery world have not figured out yet that we're in serious trouble. I can't believe it. I mean, how blind do you have to be to not realize that we're in serious trouble? And if you're in serious trouble, you start calling for help. Well, in this situation, who do you call for help? You call lawyers. Now, it's not to say that we can all afford to pay the lawyers, etc., but you've got to realize that for a lot of people, that's going to be the thing that saves their case. So, should everyone sign up for a lawsuit? No, probably everyone shouldn't. But some people will, and there should be some lawsuits that will fight the government to try and get the government to behave a bit more reasonably. So I'm hoping that does happen. So I just checked the sort of the likes here. A lot of you have liked this. I don't know, 27 likes or something. But Claude Guanmesia is angry, doesn't like my post. You don't have to come. that's fine. It's totally optional whether you come in or not. Anyway, are lawsuits necessary? Absolutely, they're necessary, and I'm thankful that we've got lawyers that are prepared to work on it. And more power to them. I love the Impact team, love Curtis and Raphael, although I have little run-ins with both of them. Raphael has some sort of problem with me for some reason. I don't know why. And Jesse was part of the original conversations about this as well. I started talking to Jesse before I started talking to any of the other lawyers, I think back in early 2020, when it was obvious that DV 2020 was in trouble. And I helped get the Ayla case started up by getting people to sign up to an interest form that I published, giving information to Jesse and his team. So I'm a believer in the lawsuits. They have been useful. They have caused some positive results, but they don't give guarantees. They can't guarantee a win for everybody. That's not the way the legal system works. It's not a bribe. When you pay a lawyer, it's not a bribe that goes directly to the judge, as works in other countries. It's a legal system, which is, justice doesn't always work as you expect it to do. Anyway, I hope that was useful. Thanks for joining me today. Keep well, everybody. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.